Hey guys, welcome back. It's Mitzi, and today I thought it would be a good idea to go through a checklist to see if you have a parent that has more narcissistic tendencies. I feel like a lot of people, they'll be in that stage where they're unsure if their parent is a narcissist because they're, oftentimes I feel like we put narcissistic tendencies and like symptoms in a box when it's more complex than just grandiose sense of self and the verbal abuse and things like that. There's certain behaviors that narcissistic parents will do, and it's very hard to be able to detach and recognize sometimes that your parent has these narcissistic tendencies. It can be a little bit easier when it's a partner because they're not your flesh and blood, but when it comes to a parent, I feel like it's very painful. It's very hard because you're having to admit that you went through some trauma as a child, and that can be hard. And that's why a lot of people, they'll be like, oh, I don't have a parent that was abusive, they loved me, they just would do maybe unhealthy things sometimes, or I have all of these symptoms, or I have all of these things going on, but I had a fine environment. And then they come to find out it was worse than they had thought. So that's why today we're going to go through the checklist, and hopefully this video will also give you some clarity so there's not so much confusion. If you can relate to some of these things, then your parent most likely has narcissistic tendencies. That's a mouthful. So this video is not intended to diagnose. I'm never here to diagnose. I always tell everybody, do not diagnose, just understand these are narcissistic tendencies and you have to treat these people differently. So the first one is they are very emotionally reactive, but they shame their child for having emotions. So normally in a healthy environment, the parent is there to help their child identify their emotions and learn how to cope with them, learn how to process them, learn how to deal with them in healthy ways. They are supposed to make their child feel that it is okay and safe to have emotions because it is a natural human experience. But when it comes to having a narcissistic parent, they are someone where they are still a child themselves. They're stuck at the age that they were abused at, and they are very reactive. They're very aggressive normally. They often will throw tantrums. You'll notice that maybe they'll go into crying fits, or they just don't act appropriate for their age, and it feels like you're dealing with a child when you have this type of parent. And then if you pointed out that they're throwing a tantrum or that they're being aggressive, they will either dismiss it completely or play the victim and saying like, you caused them to do this. So they will have very erratic moods, but when it comes to you and when you were a child, they couldn't deal with your emotions. They oftentimes would shame you for having emotions. They may have punished you for having emotions. They may have sent you to your room. They may have told you to stop crying. They'll give you something to cry about. They made you feel like you weren't allowed to have emotions, and it was a very negative experience. So you were taught to suppress your emotions, but it was very confusing because you saw your parent have these big tantrums, and then you we're not allowed to have these emotions. So you were taught that you have to attend to them and they're allowed to have those emotions, but you have to suppress it and keep it down, or you will get that aggression out in other ways, maybe in passive aggressive ways, or you maybe took on some of their behaviors and maybe you would kind of be nasty or take digs at other people in order to deal with these uncomfortable emotions that they didn't let you have. The next one is they were always reminding you who is in command. So you may have a parent that oftentimes said, I'm the mom, I'm the dad, I call the shots, I know what's best. They use being a parent as a weapon and a tool against you, rather than as a place for you to feel safe and like, I love you, I'm your parent. It's, I'm the parent, and don't forget that you are helpless and you have no say, and I'm the authority figure. They do this because they want to constantly assert that dominance, because they always are looking to control, and they don't know how to allow people to just be people. They don't know how to let you have your own personality and your own ideas and feelings. You have to be codependent and meshed as one. So they will let you know that they are the dominant one, and it is a way to claim their source of power. In healthy environments, they don't always use the I'm the mom, I'm the dad card. They have an understanding that their child is going to have a mind of their own, is going to do their own thing, and they let them, but they also let them know that they are someone that makes the rules and they have to abide by those rules. So it's a healthy balance. With narcissistic parents, it's a constant needing to dominate and say, this is the way things are and you have no say, and don't you dare challenge me. The next one demands total obedience. So when you are born, there is an immediate inherent trust for your loved ones, your mom and your dad. And that is either strengthened or broken / weakened based on how your parents attend to you. Now, in healthy environments, you form more of a trust because they prove to you through their actions, you know, I love you, I got you, I'm gonna protect you. And there's this form of safety. And so more trust is built, and you naturally want to obey what they have to say because you trust what they have to say. In narcissistic environments, trust continues to be broken because of this constant inconsistency where sometimes your needs are met, sometimes they're not. Things are chaotic where you're walking on eggshells, you never know what's gonna happen. And so there's this broken trust. And so you're gonna be confused about if you should trust them or not. And not only that, but if you do not trust them or you challenge them, then they will demand this obedience of like, you have to do what they say or else. So you always feel this constant need to blindly follow them without challenging. In healthy environments, parents welcome their kids to challenge them because that helps them to have a mind of their own. It helps them to build that trust. Narcissists don't want to be challenged because one, oftentimes their decisions or things they tell you are probably erratic and they're dumb or they don't make sense, and so they don't have to explain themselves. And two, they don't see you as your own sense of self, so they want to make sure that you're just doing what they say without having to deal with you and your emotions and whatever you come with. And so with that, there's this expectation of total obedience and admiration. They want you to admire what they have to say, and they want you to put them on this pedestal. So then you learn that your role is to constantly serve them, constantly obey them, constantly do what they ask of you, and to admire them, or else there will be some sort of consequence, whether that's you dealing with the verbal abuse, whether that's you dealing with some crazy consequence, getting things taken away. So the fourth one is gives the cold shoulder when you show independence. So again, like we had talked about, when you have a healthy environment, when you have healthy parents, they normally want to encourage that independence. They want you to explore the world. They want to help you become functioning adults. With the narcissist, they see it as a threat to their supply. Their supply meaning they want to bait you and cause you to have negative reactions to things because that makes them feel good seeing you down low, or they want to bait you by being overly positive towards you so that way you'll be overly positive towards them. And they specifically do that based on if you are giving them what they want at the time. So if you're appeasing them, if you're how you're directly affecting them will affect how they treat you. So part of the narc supply is that they want you to be dependent on them as much as possible. They have a terrifying fear of abandonment, and they can't have a natural relationship where they let people have that free will. Instead, they have to dominate and control to make sure that you will never leave them and you are attached to them. And how do you do that? You take their independence away and you make them dependent on you. Or I'm sorry, that's what the narcissist does. Healthy people don't do that, but they will try to make sure that, you know, you feel like you need them. So they will do things like they will overly be involved in your business, overly giving you advice. They will make you feel like they have to have a say in your day-to-day or your life events or your relationships, and they will make you feel like you can't think on your own, or they will belittle you or constantly criticize you and make you feel stupid for the things you do. And they want to make sure that you don't independently think from them. They want you to have the exact same ideologies and points of view as them. And they also will try to get you to overly depend on them, and this is where it can get confusing because they'll do nice things for you, like make you lunch, or they will drive you places, and it seems like they're, you know, a selfless, nice parent, but really they're doing it so you depend on them. And if you ever say, hey, I'm gonna drive myself, or I'm gonna make my own lunch, they will get very upset with you and make you feel terrible. And so then you get stuck in this loop of, oh, I have to let my parent do this thing, or there's gonna be some sort of consequence. So they'll do that, and they will constantly sabotage you. And so anytime you do something good or do something that's independent for yourself, they will make a negative experience, or they will make it so that way you don't achieve that thing. Whether that's if you're maybe trying to get healthy, they will constantly offer to go get McDonald's, or whether that's you trying to achieve a certain goal, like maybe going to college, a certain college that they don't approve of, they will sabotage your ability to get into that, maybe by not allowing you to study, or trying to force you to go see this other college. Whatever their narrative that they want to push on you, they'll push on you, and they'll sabotage what you actually want. The fifth one is they will brag about you in public, but they're way different towards you behind closed doors. So in healthy environments, because I think it's so important to talk about what's healthy and what's not, so you can see the difference, but in healthy environments, parents, they'll praise their kids behind closed doors, and they'll also tell people about it too. They'll be like, you know, behind closed doors, they'll be like, I'm so proud of you, you did amazing at that baseball game. And then they'll also be like, oh, you know, little Jay, oh, he did so amazing at the baseball game, and I'm so proud of him, yada yada. So they're the same way, you know, with people and behind closed doors. Not exactly, because we all are, you know, show different parts of ourselves, but there's not these extremes. With narcissistic parents, they'll go and they'll gloat about you and be like, my little Jay is so amazing, like he's so helpful at home, he's gonna be a doctor and he's trying to get his medical degree and yada yada, whatever. And then behind closed doors, you never feel good enough. They're constantly criticizing you. You never hear these things about that they're proud of you, or that, you know, you're helpful, or any of these positive things they say out in public. You don't hear that at home. So it's very inconsistent. Now, what this will do to you is this subtly teaches you how important image is, and that you need to appear a certain way in public. Otherwise, you will feel this shame if you ever reveal maybe negative things about yourself. And so you will get very stuck on your image and what you provide, rather than who you are as an individual person. And so you can get very addicted to work or trying to do things that make you feel good enough, so you can get that outside validation from outside sources, from the public, because that's exactly what you saw your mom or your narcissistic dad do. The sixth one, which I think is a huge one, they will control you through shame, guilt, and manipulation. So in healthy environments, the parent wants to nurture a healthy, loving relationship with their child. They don't have this urge to control. They more so want to allow their child to make their own decisions, but also wants to be in the background to guide them. The narcissistic parent, because they are so selfish and so self-centered, and they see you as an extension of themselves, they want you to be the exact image in their eye of how they imagined you should be. So their main goal is, I want to control my child to be the exact way I had imagined and wanted them to be. And when they are not doing those things, then I will shame them, I will criticize them, I will make them feel bad for what they're doing, or make them feel bad about themselves. I will threaten them, I will punish them, I will call them names, I will tell them they're pathetic or they're disgusting. And I will take away things like affection, or things that they want the most or they love the most. So for instance, let's say you're not doing exactly what the narcissistic parent wants. Like, let's say you don't want to hug them, or you set a boundary and they don't like that, then and they know that you love to go hang out with your friends, they're going to take away and say, you're grounded and you can't go see your friends. They know you're touching your phone, they'll take away your phone. They know that you love your hair, they may shave your head bald. And one of the biggest ways they control, because they see how effective it can be, is by giving silent treatment. And they most likely had dealt with silent treatment themselves, and you know, and so on and so on. And silent treatment is hands down one of the most abusive things you can do to a child, because a child is helpless. A child genuinely needs you and they depend on you. So if you are a parent that does silent treatment, that immediately causes abandonment, it causes extreme anxiety and stress in the body, and it makes the child rid themselves or do whatever they need to do in order to get that parent to not give them silent treatment again, because silent treatment equals death. Like, if I can't talk to my parent who I depend on, who gives me food, clothes me, gives me money, you know, and needs to, you know, is supposed to give me affection, all the things I need, then I will do whatever it takes to get rid of whatever's bothering them so I can get my needs met. And so this is how you can get manipulated and controlled by your narcissistic parent, because they see how effective this silent treatment can be, or how effective these punishments are, and how effective it is to threaten to cut you off. And not only that, but they'll also do it through bribes as well. So they may bribe you of, oh, if you start to wear more of these clothes, I will buy you this certain thing, or I'll, you know, I know how you wanted to go see this play and I will go take you to this play. So they may also do bribes, but the bribes come with a price to pay as well. Anything positive they do, or anytime they give you something, there's always a price to pay. They put it in their pocket and they wait to check it out later. So when you're doing something wrong, or they'll look to try to catch you doing something wrong, they'll be like, oh, you know, you did this thing, now I'm taking this thing away. Even the things they do for you have a price to pay. So they'll look for a way that they can check it out. And that could either be by asking for money, asking for favors, or having certain expectations. So if they do this one thing for you, they'll be like, oh, remember I did that thing for you? You know, you got to do this for me. I clothed you. I did all these things. I took care of you. You owe me. They don't allow you to be your own person. It's always that you have a debt to pay when it comes to your narcissistic parent. The seventh one is they over-exaggerate for attention. So over-exaggerating is not the worst thing in the world. Lots of people will over-exaggerate, but when it comes to the narcissist, it's so extreme where it's like, it's lying. It's borderline lying, or it is lying. So you may hear your narcissistic parent on the phone telling them this crazy story of something that happened. Like, let's say you and your mom went shopping and there's a little bit of an altercation with like the person at the register. Like, she didn't want to take your mom's coupon, and then, you know, there's a little bit of fight, and then they went about their day. You went about your day, rather. But the narcissist will call their friend and be like, yeah, and so then I started screaming, and like security was about to get involved, and, you know, I saw her raise her hand, and, you know, over exaggerating for this dramatic effect. So that way they can always be the victim or have some sort of attention on them. They could do this with negative moments, or they also may do this with positive moments. So let's say that you are someone where you got on the honor roll and you got like A's and B's. They may over exaggerate to their friends and be like, yeah, they're an A-star student, A+, top of the line, like always over exaggerating about what's going on. There's no it's all delusion, the negatives and the positives. The eighth one is you'll have moments where they can go from vicious to nice and loving, or vicious to pretending nothing happened. In healthy environments, it's normal for when there's a fight, or maybe someone's mean or whatever it is, because we're not perfect, we have our moments. Usually there's some sort of discussion afterwards, or there's an apology, or there's a, you know, what are we gonna do to move forward? Like, you talk about it. But in narcissistic homes, there could be moments, and there's a lot of these moments, where your narcissistic parent is screaming at you. Like, maybe you come in the door and they start screaming at you and they're going into a rage, and then all of a sudden the next moment they're like, hey, want to go get pizza? And like, you're best friends. Like, they had a temper tantrum and then they feel better, and now it's, oh, you know, I'm gonna pretend nothing happened. Then you're sitting there feeling disrespected, feeling upset, and you can't even say anything, because you know when you say something they're just gonna gaslight you or make you feel bad or pretend it didn't happen anyways. So then you're just always left feeling disrespected, or having that resentment, or feeling frustrated, because there's these constant mood swings of like this niceness and then this meanness. And also, like, when there's this meanness, there could be this overwhelming love bombing of them, you know, wanting to give you a hug or being really nice, and you will feel this like gross feeling of where there was no acknowledgement, we didn't have a conversation, and now you want to kind of love on me. Or it could be oh, okay, like they just had a moment and I'm gonna just let them have their moment, and this is just them kind of doing their own thing, and you'll be pretty dismissive. So it could be either one of those things where you get upset or you be more dismissive, depending on if you're in that fight or flight stage, because that is very much traumatic, dealing with a parent that has these extreme moods and they're nasty and then they pretend nothing happened, or they're nice afterwards and they're very loving. Number 9 is they are hypocritical. One of the narcissist's favorite thing to do is to constantly teach, but what's annoying is they don't do anything they teach. And this can be very tricky also, because you see them have the ability to grasp some of these things they're talking about, and then you don't see them do it and you get confused. You're like, okay, I know they have the ability to see, you know, what's wrong or right, or they see, you know, what they should be doing, but they don't do those things. And this comes from their lack of self-awareness. They can't look at themselves. Something, you know, if you've been watching my videos for a while, I always talk about their lack of self-awareness because of their, you know, prefrontal cortex is thinned. So they don't do that, but instead they're constantly overly critical towards you, always constantly feeling like they need to teach you a lesson, having these long lectures, and they make you feel like you're never good enough. But then you'll see them doing these things and it's like, why are you telling me and constantly feeling the need to teach me, but you don't do those things yourself? And so there's this loss of respect, but also this stress of like you needing to appease them, because there is this sense of never feeling good enough and you just want to feel like you're good enough. Number 10, they are competitive and jealous of you. So in healthy environments, it is normal, especially between a mother-daughter, for there to be a little bit of competition. You know, oftentimes you hear like the mom and the daughter, maybe they're competing with their looks or, you know, their achievements. A little bit is normal, okay? But when it comes to the narcissistic relationship, there's this constant of them needing to compare and constantly putting you down. So they'll say things like, I did this when I was your age. I was this weight when I was your age. I didn't look like that when I was your age. I wouldn't have been with that many boys when I was your age. Oh, I could have gotten a better score at that thing. You know, they'll make anytime you're trying to achieve something about themselves, and they'll put it back on themselves. It's normal to share things, but like they constantly, like they won't acknowledge you at all, or they'll just constantly criticize you. So they won't acknowledge what you're doing, or they'll criticize you and then they turn it and make it about themselves, and they'll just constantly minimize what you're doing, and they'll think they're doing a good thing of trying to humble you. Like that's what they think, is that they're being a good parent by trying to humble you and make sure that, you know, you don't get too egotistical about it. But in reality, that's not their goal. They're not trying to like humble you. Really, it's that they want to make sure that they're better than you, and you're reminded that they are better than you, and you can't outshine them or you can't do better than them, because that makes them incredibly uncomfortable to have someone, especially their own child, be better than them. They want to make sure that everyone in their inner circle feels below them and cannot do better than them. And that's why they oftentimes will sabotage. Number 11 is they wrongly discipline. So the point of discipline is to teach. It's there to help your kids understand right from wrong and to help give them structure. So in healthy environments, the parent, because that trust has been built, they will they will discipline and show that what they say is trustworthy through their love and through them being stern and being consistent. Now with the narcissist, they use discipline as a way to enforce submission and conformity. They don't teach love and trust